Here's a full tour and review of this Renault 5. Before I review this very weird imported French hatchback, I'd like to thank Global Auto Exchange here in Longwood, Florida for letting me review this car and a bunch of their other inventory. The Renault 5 was Renault's bread and butter hatchback from the early 1970s all the way into the mid 1990s. These were sold in mass numbers overseas, and we got an older generation of this, the Renault 5, as the Renault car here in the USA, but I've never seen one in person. This is the second French car I've ever driven, the first one being the Citroën BX. You can check out the video somewhere down on my page, and it is very weird, even though this is a very, very basic car, as I shall now demonstrate. This is a very, very low trim level Renault 5, so there's lots of cost cutting. There is no clock anywhere to be found. It has crank windows, manual mirrors, manual locks. Here in the gauge cluster, you have the speedometer, the fuel gauge, no temp, no tack. That's all you get. Even though this isn't a diesel, there's still a glow plug light left. And yes, you see that right. This thing has a choke. It's carbureted. There is no air conditioning here, but that's actually not as big of a problem as you think. It is a hot 90-degree Florida summer's day, and the cabin feels like it's meant to have air blown throughout it, like the car is designed without AC in mind, so it's actually kind of breezy in here once you get driving. The dome light is pretty simple. It's just flick on and flick off. I've never quite seen a headliner like this, where it kind of goes, it feels like felt in cardboard, and it just kind of stops, and then there's your metal here, your metal there. All right, I'm gonna do a visor test for Yuri. It doesn't pass. I'm not even surprised. Here you have your turn signal stock, right? It's a little bit short, horns on here. But the wiper stock, it's mounted like on the dashboard. It's so weird. This is a 1980s French car, so of course you have a massive ashtray, but this one doesn't have the optional cigarette lighter. Although this is an economy car, it is cool. It has this cool like 80s fun fabric to spruce things up. Under the hood of the Renault 5 is a carbureted 4-cylinder sorts, and look, the hood is front hinged. This looks extremely simple to work on, and look how small that radiator is. Such a cute car. It sends power to the front wheels via a 5-speed manual transmission. A 4-speed was standard. Now let's take the Renault 5 out for a little drive. A Renault 5 in Florida is the weirdest thing ever, because this just feels like I should be somewhere in Eastern Europe right now. It's quite a weird experience. I've been getting a lot more attention than I thought in this thing. I thought people would just look at this as like an 80s hatchback, but I've been getting thumbs up. I've been getting looks. This is a very, very funny car to just drive around. Like, this car does not belong here at all. Now, the 0 to 60 is yes, and top speed is maybe the speed limit on the highway. One thing I will say is that this thing has an insane turning circle. I mean, granted, this is meant for small French little villages here and there. One thing I am surprised by is the fact that the ride quality is pretty good. Like, it isn't the Citroën I drove like a few days ago, but like this thing just wafts over bumps. It's got body roll for days, and it's overall just drives like an economy car otherwise. Driving around the Renault 5 like it's supposed to be driven, an economy car, and it drives acceptable. It doesn't drive as antiquated as I thought it would. Like, the seats are more comfortable than you think. Like, they're plush, like almost American Cadillac style. And overall, what are my final thoughts on the Renault 5? It's a little bit of a novelty here. Over in Europe, I'm sure it's just an economy car, but it's a lot more, the enjoyment that you get from driving this is more from what other people view the car as, and just the funniness of driving around such a basic bare bones car. And I'd like to thank Global Auto Exchange for letting me review this car and their other cars. You should definitely check out their inventory, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.